I think a lot of times people are wondering where I should get started, but like, what kind of fault should I inject? What's the most common? And what is the point of actually doing that? Like, what am I trying to test? So I'd love to hear whether it's 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, kind of like what your top ones are and what those are actually looking for.
Mhm. Number one is a service my app is using is not reachable. And there's more than one way to do that. The best way to do that is don't shut down like this remote service your app is using, but let's do something on the network layer. Let's tell your app this service, which is still running as normal, but it's not reachable for your app only. Why? Because it's a very small impact, a very small blast radius, and only your app is not reaching the service, but all the surrounding apps and the system is still working. So what you can do now is really check and train your specific app if this remote service is not responding. That's number one. There are some other attacks which I'm not like a big fan, but they are used by people that are getting started with chaos engineering. Why? Because they would like to see if the attack they are injecting is working. What's the easiest way to do that? Do a CPU or memory attack. So what they are doing is really for the next, let's say 2 minutes, I want to inject CPU load on this particular machine. Next step, they're jumping into their monitoring tool to see, is there a spike coming up? Yes, it's coming up. But what is the value you're getting out of it? You just checked if the chaos tool was able to inject a CPU spike. There's not much value for your company, for your system. But that's like the normal situation where people that are new to chaos engineering are getting started with. The best way, the most value is when you really reboot a server, shut down a server, or maybe use some network attacks to simulate a black hole. A black hole means everything in that black hole is not reachable by network. So that's like, my number one, to do a black hole attack to really simulate if a service is not responding. There are many, many more attacks possible, but with a network and with a black hole attack, you're getting very fast value out of it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got like blocking traffic to services to see what kind of an interruption that has. It's kind of a refined blast radius, like you said. You mentioned CPU and memory, which is kind of common, but not necessarily adding that much value, you think, and then shutting down or rebooting services or servers. I've also heard of people talking about the availability zones. Can you touch on that?
Yeah. So if you're running in a cloud environment, hopefully you're running in more than one zone so that your system is distributed across multiple zones of your cloud operator. And sometimes, at least once a year, one zone is not reachable. And it's not limited to just one cloud provider. It's really like, happening in AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, you name it. And that is something you need to be aware of. And that is something you need to find a good pattern how to build your system and operate your system under this zone attack. What does it mean? It's really like one zone is not reachable for a specific time for whatever reason. And your application, let's say you're running a Kubernetes cluster, needs to be able to see that the zone is not reachable and needs to shift all the traffic to another zone, but also needs to shift the services supports to another node which is running in a different zone. So that is something you need to train, build, and test.